It seems counterintuitive to build a city near volcanoes. Some cultures believed they held religious significance, seeing them as the dwelling places of deities. There is also the advantage of having fertile volcanic soil and rich farmland. Antigua, Guatemala is surrounded by volcanoes. Some are strenuous multi-day treks, but I chose an easy day trip. I rarely take tours anymore, but park regulations required hikers to be accompanied by a certified guide. The van picked me up at 6:30 a.m. There were a total of 20 people in our group, which meant non-stop chatter. The hike itself had a steep uphill climb in loose volcanic soil that sank up to my ankles as I walked. On the way up, I chatted with an English girl from London named Divya. She was 6 weeks into her Latin American journey. She borrowed a 70-liter backpack from her friend and chuckled at how unnecessary it was. A 40-liter bag would have been perfectly fine. She confessed to being high maintenance and was usually laden down with jewelry, which she loved more than anything. Divya wore a matching navy blue sports bra and yoga pants. A delicate gold necklace dangled from her neck. There were gold studs in her ears and a thin gold nose ring in her left nostril. Her stylish outfit was a striking contrast to the rugged surroundings. The day before, she received a rejection letter from her first choice of graduate school. Her second choice was in the United States, and she was still waiting to hear back. She laughed good-naturedly, saying she didn't know what she wanted to do with her life. Perhaps she'll have a revelation on this trip. On the way back down, I chatted with Kiana, an African-American girl from New Jersey, on her spring break. She was just accepted into her first choice of graduate school and would pursue a career in social work. I asked what drew her to this noble field. She replied, many of her family members were social workers. There was so much you could do with a degree in public health. Last year, she went to El Salvador for spring break and recently applied for a study abroad program in Colombia. I told Divya and Kiana that I graduated from university over 10 years ago. They both said it didn't show. No matter how labor-intensive, for me, the hike up is much easier than the hike down. I slipped and fell once, but luckily it was backwards instead of forwards. A Chinese couple was filming the entire downhill walk on their phone. Their balance was impressive. I was relieved when the hike was finished. The nature was beautiful, but the lack of independence and constant chatter detracted from the experience. I went home, washed my shoes, and scrubbed as much dust from my skin as I could. The sun was high and very strong. I laid my soaking wet shoes on the rooftop. They were completely dry before evening. I went on another hike the next morning. A friend of mine went to Guatemala last year and told me about a trail he hiked on his own. I covered myself with sunscreen, filled my water bottle, and packed my backpack with bug spray, a hat, and my swimsuit. Apparently, there was a swimming pool at the end of the trail. The first part of the trail was shaded and dense with plants. Wooden steps paved the way. I passed a small group of bird watchers. I could hear birds, but I didn't see any. I walked in wonderful silence, the way walks in nature should be. The second part of the hike was along a ridge overlooking the scenery below. Some cars passed by, asking me if I was okay, and offered me a ride. I politely refused and walked down the gravelly road. The shoes I washed yesterday were dirty again. To my delight, there was indeed a swimming pool at the end of the trail, and with changing rooms too. I took a dip in the ice-cold water, feeling incredibly content. Unfortunately, there was no shade and the sun was scorching hot. I left the pool after 10 minutes and began walking home. A car passed and offered me a ride into town. This time I accepted. A 25-minute walk under the blistering sun was shortened to a comfortable 5-minute drive. I got back to my guest house, showered, put my feet up, and continued reading The White Tiger by Arvind Adiga. The story follows a poor man from India who escapes his low social caste by murdering his wealthy employer and fleeing to Bangalore. He grapples with the moral cost of his actions and exposes the harsh realities of social inequality in modern India. I've never been to India. This 14-month journey through Latin America is nearly finished, and even though I'm looking forward to some much-needed rest and a return to familiar comforts, my next adventure is already taking shape in my mind. India has a reserved seat on the itinerary. The next day, I decided to take it easy on my feet and go to a cafe to read. Unfortunately, I didn't make it past the chapter I was currently reading. Seated at the table next to mine were 3 American girls talking loudly about their lives, and one of my favorite things to do is eavesdrop. I proceeded in pretending to read as I listened to their conversation for the next 30 minutes. The 3 girls were young, beautiful, and deeply religious. It seemed they were in Guatemala for missionary work. They said grace before digging into their smoothie bowls. One was married a few months ago here in Antigua. Another was engaged and getting married in 3 months' time. Both dated their partners for 7 months before getting engaged. The 3rd girl didn't mention anything about her love life, so I assumed she was single. The currently engaged one was named Amy. She was the most talkative of the group. Amy recently moved to Washington State to be a graphic designer for a non-denominational church. I didn't know churches hired graphic designers. She was born and raised in Missouri. I smiled when she told her friends about the difficulties of moving to a place where she knew no one. It reminded me that, no matter where you move to, even if the language is the same and the culture is similar, being away from the people you know can be intimidating. Luckily, her long-distance boyfriend lived there already. His family was also deeply Christian and welcomed her into their home. This gave her a soft landing in this new chapter in life. Unfortunately, the relationship ended 2 weeks after her arrival. She didn't say why, much to my disappointment. Amy was worried if she'd be a good fit for her new job at the church. She was Catholic, and the church was non-denominational. But her colleagues turned out to be warm and kind. The only problem was the high employee turnover. The coming and going of people was emotionally taxing for her. It was difficult to have lasting friendships and a stable social circle. Again, I had to smile at our commonalities. Amy had an undeniably positive attitude towards life. If she got the job, it was God's intention. If she didn't, it was also His intention. She probably spent hours polishing her resume and preparing for the interview, but her faith relieved her of unnecessary pressure and anxiety. Not every decision was completely up to her. It was God's greater power. There was great comfort in that. She met her current fiancé through mutual friends. At the time, he was engaged to another girl, but ended things after realizing he wasn't actually in love with her. He felt horrible about it, but didn't want to go through with the marriage, afraid he was doing them both a great injustice. He and Amy spent more time together after his engagement ended, which led to the blossoming of their love. Having a family of her own was important to her. She was excited to see her fiancé transform as a man once he became a father. The cafe was getting much too crowded, so I decided it was time to leave. I got up from my seat and silently wished these 3 young women a happy life. I have no religious background. There are many gaps in my understanding of churches, Christianity, and religion. My family is Chinese. I grew up in the suburbs of Virginia. In my area, there were over 1,000 churches or religious organizations: Catholic, Baptist, Methodist, Lutheran, Presbyterian, Episcopalian. Most of my classmates at school were Christian. In efforts to fit in, I decided to give it a try. It was simple, really. Believe or go to hell. I came to the United States when I was 4 years old. God and Jesus were new words I learned, along with Coca-Cola, Santa Claus, Mickey Mouse, and McDonald's. All part of the essential vocabulary of American life. Like most first-generation immigrants, my parents were incredibly busy in building the foundation of our new life. I rarely saw them, and when I did, they were either exhausted or stressed. I was an only child, and God was my imaginary friend. I'd consult him whenever I had a crisis of morality during elementary school. Should I jump in front of this person in line when he isn't looking? Should I let my friend copy my homework? Should I tell the teacher what I saw, even if it gets someone in trouble? Though my understanding of integrity was still developing, talking to God helped guide me through the challenges of assimilating in a foreign country. Most of the time, we talked when I needed support and comfort. He was a constant companion, always there to listen and provide a sense of security when I felt alone or out of place. I stopped believing somewhere around high school after reading more books. There wasn't a particular novel responsible for the occurrence, just a gradual accumulation of insights. Books became my companions instead of God. They offered diverse perspectives, challenged assumptions, and introduced me to the complexities of the world. Nowadays, when something truly extraordinary happens, like meeting a kind person during my travels, I'd often inwardly express my gratitude to God. Not necessarily the Christian one, but some higher power. It's a way to acknowledge the serendipitous nature of life, to find meaning in the unexpected. It's easy to get caught up in the differences between people, but beneath the surface, we share common ground, yearning for connection, security, and a sense of purpose during our brief passage on this earth. You never know when the spark of love will happen. Before Guatemala, I lived in Argentina, and one of my friends got engaged after 2 months. Find out how it all unfolded in this video.